The barn was silent, save for the soft rustle of hay and the distant clatter of rain against the tin roof. Somewhere near the stalls, a girl crouched low in the shadows, her hands trembling as she scooped fistfuls of coarse animal feed into her mouth. The cold air bit at her bare arms. Her shoes, if they could still be called that, were torn and caked in mud. She looked no older than 16, but her eyes held the hollowness of someone who'd carried far too much pain, far too soon. When the farmhand entered with his lantern, he froze. There was something sacred and tragic about the sight. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just looked up with slow, wide eyes, as if even this, being caught in the act of desperate survival, was something she was used to. Her name was Maya, though no one had called her that in weeks, not since she'd run away from the shelter on the edge of town. She had thought life there would be safer than the streets, but safety had a price, and not one she could afford. So she kept moving, each time slipping further from notice, from help, from dignity. Until this barn, this farm, this moment, she hadn't planned to steal, just sleep, just stay dry, but hunger claws at reason like fire eats wood. The sack of feed looked too much like food. It wasn't until she chewed that she realized it was meant for animals, not her. But she didn't stop. Because when your stomach growls louder than your shame, survival takes over. She had no idea someone had been watching from the doorway, someone who saw not a thief, but a child in need. Daniel was a man known for his silence. A retired veteran, he had inherited the farm from his father and chose a life of quiet labor far from the city's noise. But Daniel had seen war. He'd seen children like Maya in dusty villages overseas, broken, forgotten, surviving off scraps and shadows. That memory rose like smoke when he saw her. Something in his chest ached, heavy and familiar. He didn't shout, didn't reach for the phone. Instead, he stepped forward, slow and calm, and shrugged off his long wool coat. He knelt beside her, ignoring the mud, the straw, the stench of loneliness. Without saying a word, he placed the coat over her shoulders, and then, after a long pause, he whispered, "You deserve better, my daughter." The words didn't register at first. Maya blinked, confused. She didn't know this man, didn't know his story. Didn't it know he had once lost a daughter not much older than her, lost her not to death, but to distance, to divorce, to a bitter separation that had stolen years from him. He had always believed he failed her, that he didn't fight hard enough, that he didn't see what she needed in time. Looking at Maya now, cold and starved and trembling in a barn, he saw a second chance not to fix the past, but to honor it. "My daughter," he said again. Not as possession, but as protection. He led her gently into the house. Maya didn't speak. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't trust words anymore. Too many had been broken. Too many promises left unmet. The warmth of the kitchen felt foreign. She flinched at the brightness. But Daniel moved slowly, carefully, like someone handling something fragile. He poured soup, not questions. He offered slippers, not suspicion. That night, she slept on the couch, wrapped in wool and silence. For the first time in months, her sleep wasn't shallow or haunted. It was heavy, safe, but comfort, like healing, doesn't come without fear. The next morning, Maya awoke to the sound of eggs sizzling and the low hum of the radio. The smell was kind, but the memories were cruel. She sat up too fast, eyes darting toward the door. A voice, Daniel's, came from the kitchen. "You're safe. Just breakfast." He said it like a ritual, like a prayer. And somehow she believed him. She didn't smile, not yet, but she stayed, and that was enough. For both of them. Maya stayed for 3 days before speaking more than a few words. Daniel didn't push. He understood that silence wasn't absence, it was protection. He kept things simple: breakfast, chores, space. He gave her the barn loft to sleep in once she grew uneasy with the couch. It was warmer now, cleaned, with fresh hay and soft blankets. Every morning he placed a plate of food on the counter, and every evening left a glass of warm milk by her bedside, never asking if she wanted it. He let her decide, and slowly she began to trust that she could. One afternoon, Maya followed him into the field without a word and stood next to him as he fixed the gate. He offered her a tool. She took it, and though she didn't smile, her eyes softened. In that moment, Daniel realized something. This girl didn't need saving. She needed space to rebuild herself. So he didn't tell her she was broken. He didn't promise things he couldn't give. He simply worked alongside her, shoulder to shoulder, like an equal. Over the following weeks, Maya began to speak in pieces. A joke here, a question there. She asked about the horses, the names of the hens. She brushed the old dog that limped by the fireplace and whispered to him as if he were the only one who truly knew what she had been through. Daniel never pried. But one night, as the wind howled outside and she sipped hot cocoa with chipped nails and calloused fingers, she spoke clearly. "I thought the world was done with me." Daniel looked up. It wasn't. Just some people were. She stared into her cup. "What if I still don't belong anywhere?" Daniel answered with a steady voice. "Then build the place yourself, and I'll help hammer the walls." That winter she stayed, helped feed the animals, cleaned the stalls, learned to cook bit by bit. Her shoulders no longer curled inward. She began to wear the coat Daniel gave her like armor, no longer as a sign of charity but of warmth she had earned. People from town noticed. She accompanied Daniel to the Sunday market once, kept her head down, but stood close. When a woman commented, "Your daughter's grown up well," Daniel smiled without correcting her. Maya didn't correct her either. But healing doesn't erase pain. It carries it differently. One day, Maya saw a man at the feed store, someone from her past. She froze. Panic flooded her face. Daniel saw it. He stepped in front of her, calm and composed. He didn't ask who the man was. He didn't need to. Instead, he placed a firm hand on her shoulder and said, "We're leaving." In the truck, she sat quietly, trembling. "He's from before," she whispered. "He used to watch me sleep, at the shelter." Daniel didn't speak, but his knuckles tightened on the wheel. That night, he didn't leave warm milk. He left the barn light on instead, just in case she needed to know someone was nearby. Spring came slowly. The trees bloomed, and so did Maya. She started sketching again, rough pencil drawings of horses, sunsets, barns. One morning, Daniel found a picture tucked under his coffee cup. It was of the night he gave her his coat. The words, "Thank you for seeing me," were written at the bottom. He didn't cry, but he kept the drawing in a frame by the window. One evening, they sat on the porch, watching the sky darken into gold. Maya looked over and said, "You know I'm not really your daughter, right?" Daniel chuckled softly. "Blood doesn't define that for me. Love does." She nodded slowly. "Then I guess I'm yours. At least, if you still want me." Daniel turned his head and answered without hesitation. "I always did. From the moment I saw you kneeling in the hay, pretending animal feed could fill you." He took her hand and added, "You deserve better. You always did." The lesson in their story isn't dramatic. It's quiet, like healing often is. Sometimes the greatest act of love is not to fix someone, but to sit with them while they fix themselves. Maya didn't need a hero. She needed one good person who didn't look away. Daniel didn't rescue her. He reminded her that she was never meant to be forgotten, and that made all the difference.